Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
What is up, and welcome into a very special off-season edition. We are the One and Done Show. We are your fast break of college basketball information. I am your host, Eric Romoff. You can catch me on those Twitter streets at FantasyNav, and he is the captain of our ship. He is MC Holland34 on Twitter. He is Mr. Mike Holland. Mike, welcome in.
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Looking forward to more off-season talk. The transfer portal big board is completed with 200 of the top players from around the country, and a lot of these guys have made their decisions. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So we'll post that on drroto.com. Probably tomorrow will be the annual dropping of the top 200 this year. And if you guys didn't catch it, get over to YouTube, get over to our Twitter account at Get Green Screens. We just interviewed last week the head coach of Pepperdine, Lorenzo Romar, and the head coach of St. Mary's, Randy Bennett. Both of those guys were fun to chop it up with. They've done some great things in their career. So if you guys haven't checked that out, go over and take a look.
Yeah, definitely don't want to miss those interviews. If you haven't been following along with us, we are on the GSM Great American Road Trip, working our way from west to east, interviewing coaches from programs all around the country. So starting out west with a couple of those legends that Mike talked about, and another fantastic coach that we had an opportunity to sit down with today is head coach Russell Turner, the head man for the UC Irvine Anteaters. So we're fortunate enough to get a few minutes of his time and talk about the season that was, get his point of view on some players he expects back, and his thoughts on navigating the player mobility era in college basketball. So let's hear back from that conversation with Coach Turner.
Coach, congratulations on another great season, your 8th 20-win season to go along with a 6th, the Big West season championship in 13 years. So how would you evaluate this past year?
Yeah, first, thanks, guys, for having me on. I really appreciate the attention for our program here at UC Irvine. I got to feel good about this season when we win a Big West championship, but it also is difficult to not reach our ultimate goal, which would be the Big West Tournament Championship and a bid into the NCAAs. We had a really good bunch of outcomes this year. We beat Oregon early in the season, which I think surprised everyone because we were maybe expected to have a down year for our program. None of us believed that would happen, but we beat Oregon. That was a big win. We beat a good LMU team early, and then we won a tournament in Vegas, all in the non-conference schedule, to get us off to a good start. And, we were excited about that. And at some points in the season, we're as good as any team that I've had here. And then in the Big West, we also, I thought, played well through some adversity with injuries. We beat every team in our league. We went into our tournament thinking that we had a great chance to win the tournament, but we got beat by a good Fullerton team who played really well and outplayed us in the semifinals. And as you guys know, when you're a mid-major program and you lose the conference tournament, it never feels great.
Yeah, certainly a tough one to swallow, but an impressive season nonetheless, and a lot to build on. And speaking of building, I want to go back to kind of the beginning of your tenure here at UC Irvine. Right, you've been here for better than a decade, and you've really made a ton of strides with this program. So wanted to hear from your point of view. What were the priorities that you had when you first came in as the head coach here, and how have they maybe evolved or modified over the course of time?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was fortunate to get this opportunity when I was 40 years old. So that's been 13 years ago now. And the thing that attracted me most to this job was that the school had never been to the NCAA tournament. And so I thought there was upside if we ever could make it. And I also looked at the Big West then and thought that there would be the opportunity for us to improve enough to potentially win the tournament, that any team in a given year would have a chance to win that tournament. And so that was what we were thinking early on, is we got to figure out a way to put ourselves in position to break through and win the NCAA tournament. And then we looked at how did we do that? There had been success in this program before under a number of different coaches. So there was an opportunity here, we thought, and we needed to build the program in a way that fit this university, fit the community here, fit the expectations academically here. Unfortunately for me, I'd also worked at Stanford and at Wake Forest, so I had a sense for how we might be able to do that. And we needed to recruit it well and just do a good job every day. And now that I look back, I think that we got a lot of those important strategic decisions right, and then we made some good decisions along the way, and then we got really lucky. It's a combination of things that you need, and now we're in a position where I feel like we've sustained success by having ourselves be a really good fit for this university. And I think that's the key in college basketball, is your program has to fit your university well.
Well, Coach, you've done an amazing job these first 13 years. We can't wait to see what you do moving forward. But I want to ask you about NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, you can't talk college hoops without bringing up those two subjects. So how has, player mobility and the NIL changed your recruiting strategy and the ability to develop your roster on a yearly basis?
Well, yeah, those are tough subjects right now. Every one of us head coaches is trying to figure out how the transfer portal and also how the NIL component of the game now and of the transfer portal are going to affect us. We've built a development-based program here where we committed mostly to taking young kids that we thought had been undervalued and then developing them. It'll be interesting for us to see if that is the type of strategy that fits best and for us to maintain. Two of our players right now are in the transfer portal, our best two scorers from this past year. Both those guys spent 3 years here. And so I want, number one, to say that I support those guys, that the players should be empowered. I feel that strongly. And the reason I coach is for the players. I think I had great coaches when I was coming through, and I'd like to be that for the guys in our program. And I'm going to be loyal to the guys that I've coached and allowing them the opportunity to look, if that's what they want to do, for better opportunities. And so those two kids are DJ Davis and Dawson Baker. Those guys are both in a position where they're going to have a bunch of opportunities to transfer, and they'll also have an opportunity to come back here if this looks like the best situation for them. And I think it makes sense for us to look at it that way. What the portal and NIL opportunities are going to mean for our program strategy, I think we still have to figure out. Most every program is going through that type of, strategy and philosophy thought process. We're going to be aggressive to take great care of our players. We're doing that in every way that we can. NIL is certainly going to be a part of that. But we've got to figure out whether the same model that we followed for a long time makes the best sense for us to continue to try to follow. It could be that that's the case. I think there are a lot of people who are jumping to conclusions about the beginning of this NIL and transfer portal market that's still also affected by the COVID year. So we're trying to be both aggressive and patient, and trying to figure out, knowing the strengths of our program. We think we have a great set of things in place here. We don't necessarily need to change it all, but we do need to figure out how best to adapt.
Yeah, certainly. And you are definitely in good company with other coaches from across the country that are trying to find ways to adapt and modify their approach in light of this player mobility era. You mentioned a couple of your top scorers from last year.
Anybody who thinks they've got it figured out is probably fooling themselves. I think time's going to tell who figures it out best, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to, but none of us probably really knows.
Yeah. I think best case scenario is maybe you have a working theory and you pursue that, right? So definitely a dynamic time in the college ranks for sure. On the topic of the transfer portal, mentioned a couple of your top scorers, Baker and Davis, are currently in the portal. They have, and all players have, until May 11th to make their decision for where they want to play in the upcoming season. say all this score, rosters are kind of in flux right now, but based on your understanding of the players who are expected to be back for you next year, is there a guy or two that you're anticipating to take a considerable step forward, whether it's on the court or in terms of leadership next year?
Yeah, and I think it would be helpful if I point out that May 11th is only the date by which guys have to be into the portal. Not very many decisions are going to be made by May 11th, so there's going to be a lot of flux in rosters well beyond that. But yes, we've always had the expectation that guys in our program are going to step forward and into bigger roles when others depart. And we've typically had that. That's how we've sustained success. And this year will be no different. The past season we had, we were not thought to be a contender for the conference championship, in part because we lost some big guys to the transfer portal last year. And our big guys, or our interior players, really stepped up this season. And so I think those guys are going to continue to improve. And I specifically mean Bent Leuchten and Devin Tillis. Those two guys were outstanding for us this year. And then we had a bunch of other younger big guys, Akiva McBurney Griffin. We had Hayden Welling. And there's others in our program, I think, that are also going to emerge with more opportunity. And with DJ and Dawson, if they choose not to come back here, we're going to have guys step forward into bigger roles in their positions. Justin Horne is a proven player here. Andre Henry is someone I know can have a big season. We redshirted a kid named Langston Redfield, who I think also is excited for his opportunity. And Pierre Crockrell is a all-conference player, honorable mention all-conference player this year, who we know is going to have a big season. So if we do lose those guys, I still expect our program to be strong. It's just going to be a matter of how strong and how much the young guys in our program can improve.
Yeah, Coach. So switching it up about X's and O's here. Your defense has been superb. It's ranked inside the top 100 in adjusted efficiency in 9 of your 13 seasons. How do you create a culture that values and prioritizes defense as a key component to success?
Well, we emphasize that as a component of our identity. So that's the start of it. We really value the toughness that defense requires, the togetherness that defense requires, and the commitment that good defense requires. So those are the type of things that we hope form foundations for our program. And then we've recruited big guys, and we've recruited defensive talents. And often I think defensive talent gets undervalued in the recruiting process. So we've looked at that as a way for us to maybe get some better types of players than we otherwise could get. The trick is fitting it all together. We've been big every year since my first 2 years. And in being big, what we've emphasized is really playing great defense at the basket. So our 2-point field goal percentage defense has been outstanding, and that's been the key to our defensive efficiency success. We've gotten better, I think, in recent seasons at being a great 3-point defensive team on top of defending at the rim. And if we do those two things well, even though we don't force a lot of turnovers in our defensive style, we can be an outstanding defensive team. We've done that with both man defense and zone defense, and there's a bunch of key things that we ask our guys to adapt to as far as style components and how we play that they bought into. And so we've combined all those elements and been pretty consistently good on the defensive side. I do expect that to continue.
Yeah, consistently good to say the least, right? And while you've done plenty of winning there for the Anteaters, if nothing else, one thing has been certain during your tenure: whoever is playing you is in for a tough day in the office. You give those opponents your best defensively. I want to take a little bit of a step back here, right? We are a few weeks into the off season, and I want to know a little bit more about kind of the things that you like to pursue and do during the off season. Do you have kind of an annual vacation that you try to track down? Do you have any hobbies or activities, routines that are sort of center to your off-season practices?
Yeah, you mean me personally?
Yeah. How do you like to spend your off-season?
Well, hey, I like to spend my off season celebrating the championship, and we're
Fair.
doing that again this year. Even though we didn't go as far as maybe we hoped to, but I've got a lot that I really enjoy. In this month, this time of year, I love the NBA playoffs, and I know that's not really that big of a step away from college basketball, but I really do love the NBA playoffs. You know, I had the privilege of coaching in the NBA for 6 seasons, so I get excited for that as a fan. That's fun for me. I also love to, you know, take care of myself through exercise. I like playing golf. I've got a great golf membership around here. My wife and I are about to celebrate our 29th anniversary. We get to have time to get more in the off season, and that's great for me. My son is a 15-year-old rising 11th grader who's playing AAU ball, and I get to travel around, see him more now that we're outside of our season. And I'm getting ready to welcome my daughter back home. She's 19 and just finished her freshman year at High Point. So we're going to have time together as a family that I really value. I'm from the East Coast, and we make a trip every year back to the mountains of North Carolina in a place called Boone, North Carolina, where Appalachian State's located. I like getting back there. So I've got a lot of good off-season plans.
Well, that all sounds amazing, Coach. Sounds like you're going to be pretty busy, along with the transfer portal and everything else going on.
Yeah.
So, lastly, before we get you out of here, want to ask, what's something about your program that you think doesn't get the attention that it deserves?
Well, thank you for asking that. In some ways, we here in the West Coast, we feel a lot of the time like we don't get the attention that maybe we deserve. And so that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful to you guys for having me, in this platform. Sustained success is what makes us interesting. We've been good for a long time now, a lot of different ways. And we haven't just been a winning program. We've been a program that's graduated all of our guys. Every one of our players in my time here, except for Big Mamadou Jai, the 7'6" center we had. I'm still working with him, trying to get him to finish his degree. But every one of our guys has graduated. We've got guys who've moved on into the community that they live in now and become successes. I think that's the story of college athletics programs that people get excited about. I know that we here take a lot of pride in producing young men, players who with character to have an impact in the things that they do beyond their performances just on the court in our program. And so I think that's the thing that I wish I could better shine a light on.
Russell Turner, head coach of the UC Irvine Anteaters. If you are not paying attention to these Anteaters, if you're not watching Big West basketball for that matter, you're doing it wrong. It is a fun and defensively tough brand of basketball that he's rolling out there. And the Big West it's a rock fight year in and year out. So definitely do yourself a favor and watch some of those Anteaters games either on tape or in the season to come. And Coach Turner, thank you again for spending some time with us today, talking a little bit about your program. Now that we have gotten through that interview, Mike, we are a couple of days since the last time that we were here on air, which means that there are mountains of information and news that have transpired in the couple of days since we've been live. So, Mike, why don't you take us on a spin through the country, kind of talk through some of the biggest headlines in terms of players entering the portal, picking their new teams. What's the latest from around the world of college basketball?
Yeah, I think the big news we got to start with is from the big man out of Syracuse, Jesse Edwards, selecting West Virginia. So he's going to go play for Bob Huggins there.
Doing it again.
This is a guy, top 5 portal player. I mean, double machine can really change your team defensively. Averaged over a block and a steal per game, almost 3 blocks per game. It was interesting to note that he mentioned that NIL wasn't the reason that he was moving on, but Then mentioned that NIL opportunities at Syracuse just maybe weren't there. Who knows? Like Coach Turner and all the other coaches that we've talked to, this is still a thing that's being navigated through, and we're only a few years into this NIL deal. So, I'm interested to see how he's going to fit. We had the Sheboy deal with Huggins a few years ago. Now Edwards stepping in, obviously a different type of player defensively, but he's going to pair up with Kurt Kriisa, another top transfer, and this West Virginia team all of a sudden starting to look pretty good on paper. Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, kind of surprising, right? We were scratching our heads a little bit when we saw the Kriisa news, and now that he lands Jesse Edwards, there are a couple of programs that are really killing in the portal, but you're gonna have to put Coach Huggins and these Mountaineers right at the top. He's really hitting everything out of the park, so should be primed for a bounce back year for West Virginia. A player that's not necessarily looking for a bounce back, actually looking to continue on their hot streak. Nahiem Alleyne, we talked about him in the last show. Since that time, he has chosen his new destination. Where is he taking his ring this season?
Yeah, Rick Pitino, man, doing his thing over at St. John's after kind of a slow start. Alleyne from Virginia Tech playing bigger minutes now comes and gets his national championship of a smaller role, only averaged 5 points per game. It's going to have obviously a bigger role here. He's going to team up with former Iona guard Dennis Jenkins in the backcourt. So, it's going to be a lot of fun to see, this team come together. Still a lot of spots available on this St. John's roster. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this comes together.
Man, proof positive that Coach Pitino is in fact a breadhead. He is watching the One and Done show. We were talking about how he was getting off to a little bit of a slow start in the portal, and then boom, back-to-back days, lands a couple of big players, the most recently being Nahiem Alleyne. Up next on the list of players that is going to another program that is absolutely killing it in the portal. Coach Golden and the Florida Gators bagged themselves a new big man. Mike, tell people about who's heading down to Gainesville.
Yeah, so, man, the season just ended, right? And here we go. We're talking about another big man being landed by Todd Golden out of Florida, and that's Seton Hall forward Tyrese Samuel, forward/center. 11 points per game, 6 rebounds, over a steal per game. He can block some shots, didn't have the best shot blocking year. And Golden, man, just getting it done in the portal. He's already landed Walter Clayton, who picked Florida over St. John's from Iona. So, a really good guard going there. And then you also just landed Marshall center Micah Henlockton not too long ago. So, hey, look, you're going to have to replace Colin Castleton. He was everything to this team. It looks like they're going to, do this by more of a committee. Henlockton is more of a, developmental piece. Had a good freshman year for Marshall. Tyrese Samuel is an experienced player going into his 5th season, just coming off of playing in the Big East, right? So, he's going to have some options this year on how he's going to want to play. I would think that they're probably going to split the 5-man minutes. I don't know if they really work together, on the same front line, but we'll see. He's got plenty of options.
Yeah, you'd much rather have too many options than rather, trying to scramble. So big ups to Coach Golden. He is getting busy there in the portal. Want to jump over to a team that was one of your sleeper favorites in the ACC last season. Obviously, they have some big holes to patch themselves. That is the NC State Wolfpack. How are they going about addressing their backcourt?
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, we had the commitment of Jaden Taylor from Butler, who I think is a really, really nice piece. And they're also getting Arizona State guard DJ Horne, switching coast here, headed over to the East Coast. And, going to play for Kevin Keats. We know, like you just mentioned, that the backcourt has some holes to fill. Terquavian Smith, Jarkel Joyner, off to the league. And, there's going to be plenty of opportunity here. So I'm looking forward to the pairing here of Horne and Taylor. And then you got some guys coming back. So they're going to have some options again in the backcourt. Not all hope is lost when you lose those two type of players who were some of our favorites covering last year. But for Horne, he's a shooter, averaged 12 points per game, more of a volume type shooter. Showed a little bit more playmaking ability last year. And in this offense, this is a fun offense to be in. It feels like this is a really great fit.
Yeah, it feels like he will step in and fill in nicely for some of those key pieces that are off to the league. It has been a theme, more of a joke over the course of the offseason that anytime a player in the transfer portal pulls up the notes app and starts writing down their feelings about the next step in their career, all of a sudden you get an incoming phone call from Eric Musselman. What is the latest piece that Coach Muss has managed to land?
The absolute importer, man. We just got news that Ellis is joining this backcourt.
Such a good get.
Yeah, what a really nice get. Look, Louisville obviously struggled last year. Ellis being the best player on the team, can explore their options, had every opportunity to play every minute and shoot the ball a ton, averaged 18 points per game, 4 assists. We're going to see how this backcourt shakes itself out. I mean, you landed Tremont Mark from Houston, Kenyon Minifield coming over from Washington, Khalif Battle, who's a volume scorer himself from Temple, and Jeremiah Davenport, who's more of a wing, but plays some 2-3. Yeah, there's a lot of guys. We're not even talking about Layden Blocker, who's a 5-star coming in. This is a ton of talent. I don't know how this is all going to work out. There's only 3-4 guard positions you can play. We'll see if he just goes 5 guards and just lets it fly this year. But no, in all seriousness, another great get. Plenty of options. You need depth in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, he will have no shortage of options, right? I'm sure he will find what that proper rotation is. And I mean, obviously there's still a lot of offseason in front of us, and rosters will continue to turn over. But I mean, it feels like Arkansas has to be at least one of the favorites to lead the SEC next year with just how much they've loaded up. While we've covered several guys that have declared their new homes for the upcoming season, we've actually got someone from Clemson that's deciding to return, Mike.
Yeah, Chase Hunter, point guard, coming back, 14 points per game. Man, this is a pretty big get for Clemson. I mean, one of their top 2-3 players from last year, going to play an additional year. And, going to make some noise in the ACC. You got to have great, point guard play. And Chase Hunter delivers that. He's a good outside shooter, can really create for others. So looking for Hunter to have a huge year next year and a really good, return here for Clemson.
Yeah, another year in that system. No reason to believe that he cannot take another step forward. That will do it for kind of the marquee announcements in the few days that have passed since we were last on air. Mike, any other names in the portal that you're keeping an eye for some information on in the next few days to come, maybe?
Yeah, so we're getting word that North Carolina State forward Jack Clark is announcing tomorrow, which is going to be Tuesday, early in the afternoon. It's picking between Arkansas. How many scholarships do we have here? Xavier, Clemson, Villanova's in the mix. We'll see if Musselman can do it over again. The absolute importer. So, we'll see. It's 4 teams in the running here. We'll get Clark's decision tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely a name to watch, Jack Clark. I'm just hoping that he does it high school recruit style, where he sits down at the folding table with the hats in front of him. I want the showmanship and the pageantry of this to be turned all the way up. Speaking of showmanship, Mike mentioned at the top of the show that his version 1 of the big board, the first 200 that he's posting, should be live over here at Dr. Roto in the next few days. If you are checking in on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe buttons. You know that part. Get into those comments. Keep the pressure turned up high. We're trying to push this man to 250 to 300. We want to see how big this board can get, and he will fold the pressure. He went into the offseason intending to only rank 100. We've doubled it. We're at 200 now. So make sure you get over to drroto.com, get yourself subscribed so you can get V1 of Mike's big board, the top 200 players who entered the transfer portal this offseason. And then get over to our YouTube channel, Green Screens Media on YouTube. Make sure you're not only subscribed, but hit that notification bell. Like we mentioned at the top, we're going to continue our coaching interview tour, working from west to east. We've got Coach Perry for Pacific lined up later this week. More names to come. So make sure that notification bell is on so you don't miss a single show and so you can get this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.